I suppose the background to it is I would never have written a book about, have a sports book written about myself. I didn't feel like there'd be a book, I'd warrant one with all the great players we've had in the county. There was a lot of lads ahead of me that I felt would have had a book, the Brian Whelans and the Martin Furlongs and all those guys and the Dooleys, but and it's a long time since I retired, so that idea was long gone. But no Offaly GA player for some reason had ever written a book, so I suppose there was a gap there.
I didn't realise that.
No, it's one of the few counties, so there was a gap there from that point of view. But really, I suppose it was about Pat has a huge passion for the GA and for Offaly GA and a massive knowledge of it, and so I suppose Pat was approaching it from that point of view, and then when he asked me about it, and obviously I'd been through a fair bit in a personal life, and Liam Hayes, who's one of the publishers, was a former Meath footballer, but he had cancer himself around the same time and was in treatment for it, and so Pat and myself and Liam sat down and we in our discussion felt it was a worthwhile project.
Do you know each other for quite a while?
Not really, no. I would have, Michael was an acquaintance, I suppose. I would have known him to talk to up and down, but not in a very big way, no.
Okay, I'm going to start about the book now, because when I read it, when I got the book into my hands, I thought, maybe a little bit had the fear that it would be pretty much all hurling. The prologue, I couldn't believe it. I thought that was very brave to start with a huge negative about yourself, or an open, honest approach to how you were. Was that a joint decision, or Michael, did you decide, I'm going to be upfront and honest from the start?
Well, I think, when I first approached Michael about the book, it was actually over in his office, it's not too far from here. He did say that if he was going to do a book, that he'd have to be 100% about it, and not write one of these sort of 5 out of 10 books that a lot of sports personalities do. And
are we allowed to tell people about the prologue and the very initial intro into it, which was an incident in Tullamore, which I think everybody was talking about at the time? It was when a barmaid got an elbow as you were swinging to punch someone in a local establishment. And that was the beginning of a realisation for you, really.
Well, I suppose we won't talk about but I think people listening, a lot of locals will know, the story. We can't really mention names or where it happened, but look, it was, I suppose, from my point of view, there was a lot of things, but there would have been a big change in point, I suppose a turning point from my own point of view after that incident, as I say in the book, that I sort of, I hadn't realised that I was gone down that particular route that I'd been.
You were kind of hinted to, people were telling you about.
Well, people had sort of been, there was one or two very close friends of mine trying to tell me, but I suppose I had been under a lot of pressure for a good few years in different ways, and it was manifesting itself when I went out. I didn't realise it. I thought I was still the same person, and I was, getting on well with people as I normally would and social, but there had been various incidents where, and it wasn't that there was big dust-ups like that every night, but there was different arguments and different nights, and I was edging.
You weren't falling over the streets of Tullamore brawls.
And every night, no, but there was a lot of bits and pieces going on, and a lot of my friends were concerned about it. And it's only really after that happened that, Pat Cleary, who works in town here, and Joe Dooley and Kieran Daly, lads like that, and they said to me, look, this is going on, and it was really the realisation then for myself, which was a very embarrassing thing really, to see that I had become that sort of person, had been involved in these sort of things, and the risks that were attached to that, with Edel gone, the lads were on their own, really, they were with me, and I was leaving them with neighbours, and I was doing this, that and the other, and that I got the opportunity, I suppose, to straighten myself out. It wasn't that it was gone that bad or for that long a period, but it was, certainly that was a serious enough incident, and it could have been worse. I could have been hurt, someone else could have been hurt, there could have been, legal or guards involved, and none of that did happen, lucky enough. So I suppose it was a severe warning and I got away with it.
But was that you, Pat, that actually said, let's start the book with that kind of the road to Damascus, as you describe it yourselves? It
was actually, yeah, because I started doing the interviews with Michael last January actually, and in one of the first interviews, possibly the first one, definitely, if not that, then the second one, he did mention that incident, and he described it as a turning point in his life. So for that reason, I thought that was a very strong statement to make, considering everything that he'd gone through. So I thought for that reason it would go very well at the start of the book. It would be a very strong introduction and would engage a lot of readers as well.
And it would engage even people who aren't involved in the GAA, which is the nice part.
Well, it's not really, it's a life story really, and it's my perspective on things, and I didn't, as Pat would know, we spent a lot of time together, but I didn't really get anybody else to read it or whatever. I just wanted to do it as I saw it and through my eyes, and it's a perspective on life really, and the GA is a huge part of my life, but it's only part of the story. But I think another reason we put it in there was because I think a lot of people out there might have felt, look, this will be in a book, whatever, it'll be the usual, and you'll brush stuff under the carpet or whatever. And that wasn't it. I wanted to say.
So people just basically opened the book and there it was, slam bang. So it was out.
Yeah,
it's scouring.
It's in there, and you get in. And I suppose, look, from a publishing point of view, a writing point of view, that there'd be reasons for doing things like. But from my own point of view, I suppose when I was going to write, I wanted to get it out there that this is going to be an honest book, and whatever, whether people read it or don't read it or buy it is not really my concern. At the end of the day, that's up to themselves. But just from my own point of view and doing the project, that's the way we wanted to be about it.
I have to say that the handling, the first part of the book is about Adele, your wife, who passed away in 2009. As a girl, and probably as an emotional girl, I actually spent a lot of the first part crying, tears through my eyes. Maybe it was one of the reasons that it's taken me so long to read. But it was really lovely written. You weren't over emotional, and I think it was the reserve that made it more effective, or more. You could feel your pain without you telling your pain.
Yeah, well, I suppose there's two sides there. I suppose number one, that would have maybe been the relationship that myself and Adele had. It was that type of relationship. Like, she wasn't one for
over emotion,
and neither, but yet would be emotional. It was a very emotional. Obviously, when you're going to die and you're going to die, it's huge. You can't really put it in words. But as a person, she was very reserved and very tough, and she was one for getting on with life. And basically, that's the way she set the tone. So it's really her tone, maybe, but also I think it's a tribute to Pat's writing, because Pat's a young guy. He's only 28 when he started. He's 29 now. I keep telling him, but I think genuinely for getting old. But for a guy that a single man that wouldn't have gone through that, to actually to get that tone from me and to be able to write it in that way, I think was a tribute really to Pat's writing more than anything else.
How was that writing for you, Pat? Was that a difficult phase?
It
could
was,
you be the objective, author, co-author?
Yeah, I suppose it was a big challenge, because it's like I write as a GA reporter, so it's obviously moving me out of my comfort zone. But it was difficult, but I suppose it probably flowed a lot easier than I thought it would. Having said all that, now from reading the book, you'll know that it's structured in 3 parts, and that I suppose the hurling stuff is mainly in the middle part. In terms of writing the book, I did parts 1 and 3 first, and then
top and tail.
Yeah, and then went back and did part 2. And I suppose I wrote part 2, even though it's longer. I probably wrote it quicker and it flowed a lot easier than parts 1 and 3. But having said that, when I was starting out the book, I was wondering, as Michael alluded to there, would I be able to grasp the experience that he'd gone through, given that I can't relate to anything quite like that. And having said that, once I sat down to do it, while it was difficult, it wasn't quite as challenging as I thought it would be. And I suppose part of that is because he was very open and honest, and I didn't have to drag any information out of him during the course of the interviews.
Maybe it was actually easier because you weren't tarnished by your own feelings,
Possibly, yeah.
Well, I thought it was 2 things. Or one particular, that myself and Pat didn't know each other fierce well, I thought was a big thing, because if I was with someone that I knew very well, I'm not sure I would have opened up as much. And Pat would be good listener. He asked a few questions, but he generally kept out. He got the thing going, and he kept out and let me tell the story. And then he went away, and for every he had to transcribe every word of the interviews. Anyone that interviews me knows I talk a lot and talk fairly quick. So he had a big job on his hands that way. But I think I just think, in terms of it, again, going back to why the book was written, it was only maybe 13, 14, 15 months after Adele died. I could have left it for a few years, but I didn't think it would, help the people that to me, going into a cancer, going into the oncology ward, whether it be in Tullamore or St James's, but the people that you meet, the way they accept their what's happening to them, and to getting on with their treatment, and the bravery and everything, and then the dignity, and the way the nurses up, the
actually,
special bond.
That was a beautiful thing that you said at the end when you were taking your wife's. Well, it wasn't you; it was O'Reilly's undertakers were taking your body's wife out of the hospital, and all of the nurses came out. And never happened before. But
they developed a huge friendship, because and it'll be going up with little presents and bringing them up to, and they became great friends over the years that she was going there. So
because she was going for 3 years, wasn't it, or
3 years? Yeah, with no break to James's, and she had been up there previously. But in those 3 years, she was up there maybe weekly or fortnightly or every 3 weeks. But that's a huge. It's a huge part of the story. But I wanted to tell it, as I say, when it was raw, and it's amazing the messages I've got since, and the letters, and but I got an email the other day. I was on Ryan Tubridy the other morning, and when I got back to the office, there was an email from a man from Athlone, who said he was driving to the Mater Hospital with his wife, who's been having treatment for breast cancer for the last 12 months, and you know what a huge help it was, and he was very complimentary. But he said it gave them a great lift to get, you know, and you could take it the other way, that it's negative that Edel ended up dying at the end of it, but
Well, she lived 3 years, which I think is amazing.
Well, I think like there's two stages. There's primary cancer, which Adele had, and she, you know, the message is there's great hope there. There's great treatments out there. People can get better and get on with it. And even with secondary cancer, where
bless you,
bless you, Pat. Where the secondary cancer, where obviously it's a huge trauma to be told that you're not going to get better, but yet you can live life. And we did more probably in those 3 years than, you know, than a lot of couples might do in their whole lives together.
And another thing which is in it, it's like prying into your private life, and you got to do that as well, Pat, is the fact that you decided that you didn't really want to go away anymore, you know, abroad on holidays, and you started having holidays at home in Ireland and visiting friends and rebonding, and it was really lovely.
Yeah, well, the first thing Adele did was...
Was that age, though, or was that religion?
No, it was... Yeah, it could be all that. No, I still like going away on holidays, but... no, the first one was the Kilkee with Adele's...
Yeah.
Like, Adele has... There's 7 of them in the family.
Adele's from Portlaoise.
Portlaoise, yeah. And we're actually over there tonight in Easton's at 6 o'clock signing a few books, so anyone that's around Portlaoise and McNamee's Easton's shop tonight. But Adele wanted to get the family... She was very conscious that she wanted my lads to stay in touch with her cousins and with her brothers and sisters and all that. So she got all the family together, and her mother and father, who were still alive, in Kilkee a number of years ago, and we all went down there for a few days. That's where they used to go on holidays as kids. So we kept that up, and we did it again last summer and the summer before, since Adele passed away. So that's been great. And then West Cork, Ballyconneely, you know, we take, I think, our own country for granted. Maybe it was gone too expensive to holiday in Ireland, but it's come back a bit now, and there's a bit more value out there. So we've had great summers, and we've kept that going ever since.
Yeah, there was one in one of them where you were saying that you were down in a mobile home, a friend's mobile home, and there was everybody around dropping in little bits and bobs to you, and the Cowans were on holidays there that summer as well. It sounded gorgeous.
It was, and the weather, they were dropping in for a glass of wine here and out next door, and we had them in, and just easy going and a bit of crack, and walk down onto the beach and into the sea. Even if it was cold, you get in for a few minutes. So yeah, just simple pleasures. I think really, you know, when you are under pressure or when you are in a position, it's the simple things that count, and we have a great country here. We want to make the most of it.
How old are your 2 boys now?
Sean is 13 and Brian's 11.
And the reason I want to ask this is, and I think, as you said there, you started writing the book, Pat, the beginning and the end, and left the kind of hurling chunk in the middle till the end. You finished the book, and it's really about Adele again and the boys. And the boys, was that a conscious end? The book ends almost, beginning and end, wrap it up nicely.
Yeah, well, I suppose the dominant theme, or the dominant incidents, I suppose, that happened in Michael's life was his relationship with Adele and her eventual passing. So I think it was very important that come across at the beginning and end of the book, rather than, like, I know hurling is obviously a huge part of Michael's life too, but I think if you were to end it with some sort of hurling anecdote, it would have rang a bit hollow. So I felt it was important to start the book on that, and then I suppose to end it given a perspective of where he is now, having, you know, two years on, having, I suppose, gone through a lot over the previous 5 or 6 years.
And did you like that idea? Were you glad that it ended it that way?
Well, yeah. Look, it took on its own course, and you know, I think it's well written, well put together. But I think it's not all about, you know, I suppose, like, you know, there's a lot of insights into Offaly hurling, and
I'm going to get to that. Don't you worry.
And all that, you know. But I think it was, yeah. You know, look, it was basically writing the life story and concentrating on the 19 or 20 years that was with Adele, and telling that story through the eyes of hurling and everything else, and the good, the bads, and the indifference, and the ups and downs. And obviously her sickness was a huge part of it, but it didn't take over our lives either at any stage, which I think is important. And I think it was a fitting way, I think, to wrap it up.
Yeah, I have to say, Adele was very beautiful, because there's loads of pictures in this book, which is lovely to see as well, but she was a very beautiful woman. We spoke a lot about Adele, your wife, and that whole relationship and dealing with her cancer and stuff like that. But the centre part, Pat, this must have been your dream part as a sports writer, was all about not just hurling but football and rugby, the whole shebang. Was it a dream come true to have to write it?
Well, it was, yeah, because as I said at the night of the book launch, the team that Michael played on had a massive influence on me when I was growing up, and they were my heroes, you know. And I suppose one of the things that, like, I'm a follower of most sports, and For me, what sets the GA apart is that you know, your heroes are local, and you can relate to them, and they're just ordinary people like anyone else. And so I think to like, I would have went to all the matches growing up, all 94, 98, and all the years before and after that, and in between, and I couldn't put words on the esteem that I held that group of players in, for various reasons, for I suppose the brand of hurling that they played, and the level of sportsmanship that they had, and just the amount of quality players that they had, and they were great ambassadors for the county, and gave me great pride and satisfaction in where I come from. So I suppose, having seen the matches, to go beyond the matches and into the dressing room and get anecdotes about all the characters that made up that team, of which there were various, that was very gratifying for me, and that's something that I took great satisfaction out of.
The one thing I want to, before I bring you back in, Michael, is you left in what I'd call the kind of common speech, the thing that I actually think makes you warm to it a lot, like it was savage. And it was an epic match. You know, things that you could actually hear you say, Michael, you know, and you didn't change them to make them sound, you know, a bit more literary or anything.
No, and I suppose the fact that the two of us are from Offaly, I suppose maybe we're kindred spirits like
savage,
that. You know.
Is savage an Offaly word?
Would be, yeah. It'd be one of several.
Because it stuck out. I went, geez, Michael must say that an awful lot.
Well, I probably say it more than he does, but yeah, well, I think it was important to use language that people can relate to, and I suppose the fact that I'm from Offaly as well would have probably helped.
Yeah, you were very ambitious from a very young age, weren't you, Michael?
I was, looking back on it now. Yeah, I probably didn't realise. I don't know when I realised I was, but I you know, I do recall in the book not getting on an under 12 or under 13 team, and one of the other lads, Ryan Mannion, my great friend, was on the team before me, and I remember saying to myself, you know, they went off to Butlands and I didn't go. I was left at home. I think it was about 8 or 9, and I said I won't be left at home again, you know, and that's the way I sort of drove myself on.
And everybody went to Butlands back then, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, I got there afterwards, but I didn't. But I got there in athletics as well. But that was I can recall things like that. It's little things that stand out to me. Why I can remember them, I don't know. But obviously, you know, and like getting the belt of the ball in the ear when I was a young lad up in the field. That's one of the first times I got a slitter in the ear. I got an awful belt, and I cycled down home, bawling my eyes out. And when I got to the gate, I looked in and I said, if I go in here crying, I could get another belt, or I mightn't be let out again. So I cycled back up and took my punishment. Like so, So I was, and it was the same. You know, I always wanted to get on whatever team was there ahead of me, and if I was 10, I reckon I'm under 14, so I should be on the under 14s, even though now to be on the under 10 team or the under 11 team. But I was kind of looking up the line a little bit and trying to get ahead of myself. Now,
am I right in saying now they try and keep you at the underage level so that you don't burn out at a younger age?
Yeah, to keep you at within reason, you know, like to try to keep, if you're 10, to keep you under 12 or 11. But we could have, maybe it's down to numbers and down to whatever, but we might have hurled a bit ahead of our time, and it probably, you know, it's all for player welfare, which is probably good, because we picked up a lot of, I would have certainly played a lot of senior stuff at 16, 17 that maybe I was better off waiting a couple of years. But anyway, that's another day's work. I don't regret any of it.
Of all of the games, which were the ones that you liked the most? Which are the most memorable?
The one I nearly always pick out first is the 95 Leinster final against Kilkenny. It was the real wet day. People will recall it was absolutely monsoon-like conditions, and we had won the All-Ireland in 94, and some people, I said, were a bit fortuitous against Limerick. You know, it was obviously, you know, we only won it in the last few minutes, the famous All-Ireland. But the following year then, Kilkenny beat us well in the league quarter-final, I think it was, down in semi-final down in Thurles. I have to check with Pat all these details. But they beat us well, and going into the Leinster final, and they were hot favourites, and we took it as a very much an affront that, you know, we were being written off after having been All-Ireland champions. And the build up to that match and the training was so good, and the atmosphere that day, and the team meeting we had. We weren't big into team meetings, and we weren't big into a lot of sort of what a lot of teams would be into now. We were very much, once we finished our training on Thursday night, we just get together on the Sunday and go out and hurl. Not maybe quite as simple as that, but we had an awful lot of serious hurling men in our team,
and you had a lot of serious trainers as well, coaches training your fitness levels.
We had everything, we had all that, and it was brushed under, you know. But we had serious men on the team and serious leaders. But generally we were laid back until it came to the hour or two before the game. But that day in Powers, or in the Ashland Hotel, the team meeting was just power. It was serious. Now Eamon Cregan set the tone, and the players got into it, and it was like, for an outsider or someone looking in, it'd be frightening and stuff. Now the intensity was unbelievable.
I loved what you were saying about the sit down of the Offaly protests after the Clare game, after it was finished early, and then you getting the replay. That was really lovely as well.
Well, that was huge. I suppose moving on from that, the 98 year in general was very, very special. But when we took it, the game was over. Even though we were very disappointed, we knew it was blown up early. But that's again the way I would have been. And myself and Johnny Pilkin were upstairs in the players' lounge fairly quickly straight after the game. And he went over to the window and looked out, and he called me over, and we just couldn't believe what we saw. And certainly, I felt a bond was created that day between the Offaly players and supporters. That was, we always were the faithful county and the faithful supporters. But there's times you'd say, the supporters on your back or this or that or the other. But that for that rest of that year, it was unbreakable. Like, we realised what it meant, and they realised. And I remember us training up in O'Connor Park after that, and the crowd turned up, a huge crowd one night, and you could feel that sort of didn't want us to win. They demanded us nearly that we were going to win the All-Ireland, and it was going to be very hard for any team to beat us after that happened, because it was just such a momentum built up. And that 98 All-Ireland was the pinnacle of my career from a playing point of view. But the 95 Leinster final was just a special day. I
know that we're running out of time. I can't believe it already, but I did want to ask, you're very positive about people in general around the book, but you were reserved a lot when it came to Babs Keating.
Look, I suppose I was trying to put a balance on it. He was I wouldn't want. I think the general consensus in Offaly is very negative towards Babs, but I was just trying to paint. He did some positive. He took over. He was very interested in player welfare. And he put some good structures in place. But I suppose ultimately, at the end of the day, he. Something that Babs does a little bit is that when the team loses, he tries to distance himself from it, and I think that's what he did that day. And the Offaly players, the trend hadn't been going well, and we knew that as players. But I was probably a little bit close to Babs because I was going up and down for the trend, and I wasn't.
Yeah, because you were living in Naas.
I was living, and he was a great character now. And
was it Naas at the time you
were?
Naas
at the time, yeah. He was a great character and a great personality, but I wasn't maybe realising, like, the other players were sort of discussing it and saying, look, trend is not coming on, we're being left behind, and then the whole thing happened and clashed. But look, Babs is not going to be too worried. Babs is Babs, and Babs will always be talked about. And I like Babs as a person, as a visual. He's good cracking at it, but the time at Offaly finished the way it did, and if it didn't, we wouldn't have won the All-Ireland. That's in my opinion, we were going nowhere fast, and Michael Bond came in, and the leaders in the team,
which I love his name, Michael Bond.
Yeah, well, it put the pressure on the players. We had to produce the goods. The manager was gone because of Johnny Pilkington really coming out. That put the pressure on the county board to get rid of Babs, and once he was gone, we had to stand together, and the only thing that we could do then to justify ourselves was to win the All-Ireland,
and you did it,
and we did it.